What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank. An African-American millennial gives her analysis on FBA. And I think she is hitting the nail right on the head because she seems to be within my age group. So I'm resonating about what it is she's saying and how her perspective on how she's viewing things. There are a lot of black people who are now, know you guys heard me say this, there's some black people who are just finding their pride in being black, right? And I say that a lot, but it's an actual factual statement that in the age of information, there are a lot of black people who are literally coming out of an era at which they fell for the deception of viewing themselves in a negative light, viewing things that are African in a negative light. As we know, we've been inundated with lots of negative propaganda about ourselves, right? And we're coming out of that. And as we're coming out of that and we're gaining information about who we are, we're experiencing and having more contact with our brothers and sisters on the continent and in the Caribbean. A lot of African Americans are having issues defining themselves amongst all the other black folks, right? Like it's one thing when you are the only one, right? It's another thing when you have to be faced with the fact that you are not the only one, right? And so I see a lot of people trying to deal with that. Right. And FBA is another way of them trying to deal with it, because you hear about some of the stuff they're talking about. They want to make sure that they're not forgotten. Right. These are African Americans who want to make sure they're not forgotten as they see more people that look like them that are different from them move into their spaces. Right. And they feel like they're being drowned out. They're feeling like they're not being appreciated because there are people who don't, because from their perspective, they're not educated on American history. Most people around the world are not educated on real American history. African Americans, we know and understand American history intimately because we participated, we're a part of it. American history is African American history. It's us surviving Europeans. That's all of American history is us surviving Europeans. You can make a whole freaking movie about this situation. You know what I'm saying? That's what it's about, right? And it's about the good guys, which is us, versus the bad guys, which is them, right? It's pretty cut and dry, right, for the most part. But there's a lot of layers we need to peel back when it comes to the post-traumatic slave syndrome that we have as a community, and that is orienting ourselves towards who we are for real, right? Embracing who we are for real, whether it makes us feel uncomfortable or not, right? Whether it makes us feel less special or not, because the thing is, African Americans, we are special. There's no group of people on the planet in human history that has our story. We have one of the greatest stories in this. When I say African American, I'm also talking about the other African Americans, because America is a continent. I'm talking about all black people who were taken from Africa and brought to the Western Hemisphere. Africans who are now in the Americas, because America is a continent. It's a continent. Africa is a continent, not one country. So if you're African, stop speaking for 54 countries. All right, just a side note, if you are a slightly xenophobic African defending your continental Africanness from African Americans, stop speaking as you speak for 54 different African countries, because you only belong to one African country. Therefore, you speak for that African country when you're spilling your underlying xenophobia towards African Americans in response to their xenophobic rhetoric towards you, as we're all learning about each other. And I just had to throw that in there because there's a lot of Africans who feel like when they're battling African Americans in the battle of egos, where they represent 54 African countries, it's impossible. All right. In a general sense, you can say African people, but you don't represent 54 African countries. So when you speak, you're not speaking for 54 African countries usually. And I'm talking about in the context of your xenophobia towards how Africans feel about African Americans, because trust and believe, most of you xenophobic African YouTubers who undercut and undermine African Americans because you're jealous, even though you live in America and you reap the benefits of what African Americans have done for you, you tend to try to use the army of the continent of Africa to back you up, when in fact you're just like them. Hateful, xenophobic, low-thinking, low-vibrational idiots who are against unity. And there's different degrees of that too, different levels of xenophobia. You got some who are like, we friendly, but I still got to take a couple shots, not based in any knowledge at all, or just straight flat out. Y'all know who these YouTubers are. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Like, y'all know. And I put them all in the category. Continental Africans, xenophobic African Americans, South Africans who are xenophobic towards other Africans. Any group of Africans who hate other Africans are in the same bucket. All right? All y'all, don't matter where you from. Your ignorance transcends ethnicity, race, language, all that shit. You're over here in the tribe of ignorance, black ignorance, all right? But over here in the enlightened side of the black world, right, we have to analyze why people are doing the things that they're doing and saying the things that they're saying, because we have to come up with a solution. All these round robin, circle jerk conversations happening online with people reinforcing the ignorance within their mind, that is not going to get us anywhere. And as a Pan-African, it's my job to unify. I talk shit, but I only talk shit to those who mean to divide us. I only talk shit to the enemy. You'll never see me talk shit to my brothers and sisters. All right? But anyway, this black woman, she has a very even-keeled perspective on everything. So let's go ahead and listen to what she got to say. And you guys tell me what you think in the comment section. It's Afro Think Tank. Learn some, teach some. I'm out.
So I want to talk about FBAs. There's been so many different like news cycles on the app regarding FBAs that I've just kind of let slide. And I just want to do a stream of consciousness really quickly about my feelings about FBAs and FBA ideologies. I think the most recent situation with that lady saying that she wanted to strap up to her chest around FBAs has really awakened a very specific talking point that I want to hammer home, but we'll get into that. Again, this is Stream of Consciousness. I'm a zillennial. I am either the last millennial or the first Gen Z. I like to think of the 1996 to probably 1998, maybe 1999 generation as a like capsule generation. I think we have very unique experiences that people don't really pay attention to because we are kind of on the cusp of a lot of things changing. That being said, though, I was very sentient in the early 2000s. That is my bread and butter. That is when I grew up. That is what I remember. That's what I was influenced by, the early 2000s. So conversations around Limited 2 and America's Next Top Model, that was my time. I was growing up with a lot of these different beauty standards. And by the time I was in high school, a lot of the early 2000s beauty standards had changed a lot. What do I mean by this? Well, in the early 2000s, as we see with the America's Next Top Model documentary, there was a very, very specific aesthetic that was thought to be beautiful. And it did not include blackness. It did not include a lot of shape. It did not include a lot of melanin. It was very, very specific. And by the time I was in high school, there's a lot of different conversations and logic around what it was to be beautiful, what it was to be black. A lot of different movements were getting really popular at the time, like the natural hair movement. Different vocabulary was being introduced, i.e. cultural appropriation, i.e. microaggressions. A lot of things about being black and vocalizing what that experience was starting to become mainstream, and being prideful in being black, being prideful in wearing your natural hair, being prideful in taking on some of these traditions that people used to feel ashamed of back in the early 2000s. And by the time I went to college in that 2014 to 2018 area, that was to me the pinnacle of a lot of like really, really pro-black like concepts coming to the timeline on social media for the first time. You had a lot of people with their AliExpress dashikis. You had a lot of people on that Dr. Sebi tip, on that Dr. Umar tip, on that Nature Boy tip. You had a lot of different conversations happening around blackness and being proud to be black. And I think that a lot of conversations around hair, around diet, around body, around nature and blackness started to become more mainstream. At the same time, though, couched in that, there was levels to it. Like maybe you were into your natural hair, but you weren't a Dr. Sebi person. Or maybe you were into eating a Dr. Sebi type diet, but you weren't into Nature Boy. Or maybe you were, very proud of being black, but you weren't a Hotep in the same capacity, or a Black Israelite in the same capacity. And specifically in that 2014-2018 time frame, I learned a lot, I felt a lot, and a lot of the FBA talking points that have been normalized and actually centered recently were fringe concepts back in the day. Like, I used to make jokes. I used to laugh about Hoteps. I used to laugh about people who would proudly proclaim that they're FBAs based on their ideologies for many reasons. There's a lot of reasons to laugh at these people. There's a lot of reasons to poke holes in their ideology, mainly because it is antithetical to what they think they're doing. I was never into the Dr. Sebi pipeline because I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, and Seventh-day Adventists have a very specific health message. So I've been familiar with people who thought that drinking juices and eating raw vegetables could cure cancer. I also grew up in a Seventh-day Adventist family, so I knew it wasn't true. There are many people that followed the Seventh-day Adventist health message and didn't go to doctors that I knew passed away from curable things because they were following that type of logic. So I never fell down that pipeline because I have a medical family. My grandpa's a doctor. Both my grandpas were doctors. Both my grandmas were nurses. We weren't playing that type of juice will fix cancer type of thing. We weren't on that type of time. And I'd seen the effects of that mindset throughout my entire childhood. There were many people who got, diagnoses of curable cancers who were trying to juice it away in my church, who ended up passing away, and in their last stages before death wanted the chemo, wanted all the treatments, and realized that it was too far gone. I didn't fall into like the nature boy Dr. Umar thing because I always felt like it was strange that you are creating a system or a way of belief that is supposedly antithetical and absent of whiteness and colonialist ideology that still upholds things like patriarchy and homophobia and all of these things that are very intertwined with white supremacy. So I always knew that it was a farce. Those pipelines just weren't for me. Was I happy to be black? Was I proud to be black? Yes. Was I gonna walk around in an AliExpress dashiki? No, that wasn't my stilo. FBA ideology is a conservative ideology. It is. It's a conservative ideology for earthy hoes, and that's just the truth. It's interesting that I'm deciding to make this video after watching FD Signifier's Tyler Perry video talking about like the lowercase c conservative people in the black community associated with the black church. Hotepery, FBA logic, all of those things are the earthy queens and the earthy guys who like to use, crystal deodorant's version of conservative ideologies. So when I saw Tucker Carlson admit to appreciating and understanding the FBA logic on his own platform and FBA's in the comments praising him for that, I knew that y'all had lost the plot completely. Like the hotepery in the dancery, the FBA logic in the dancery, the ideology of FBAs in general is fundamentally conservative. It just is. The xenophobia, the lack of solidarity amongst our diasporic brothers and sisters and all of these types of things, like that is a conservative's wet dream that is being used and employed right now currently to continue to pursue the fascist administration that is multicultural, mind you, that we're living under right now. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of that is this insecurity of feeling ignored and not acknowledged for the contributions that black people, black Americans have made to our greater society. And that insecurity allows people to be open to things that just sound good, but don't actually make any fucking logical sense. You don't have a counterculture ideology if a lot of the tenets of what you believe still get folded into conservative Christian talking points, white supremacist talking points, patriarchy, homophobia, transphobia. All of these are points that you are just painting black, but really are based in white supremacy. And because y'all don't realize that, and you're so desperate for acknowledgement by anybody, you get led astray often. Am I proud to be black? Absolutely. I've never not been proud to be black, but I'm not this type of black where I am not insecure enough to be led astray by an ideology that people are making up that isn't actually based in the liberation of my people. This current situation with, I guess she's African, I'm assuming. That's what I'm hearing. This African girl who came online and said she would strap up to her chest and wanted to like a bunch of FBAs in her vicinity, and how it's being discussed and talked about is very specific and very important for me to point out. I've noticed for a long time that a lot of FBA logic and talking points have leaked into the mainstream when it comes to black American talking points, and I think that's problematic because that is a conservative ideology, and y'all are not immune to the alt-right pipeline just because you guys are black. Is what she said extremely problematic and violent? Absolutely. But the reaction of using what she said, where she was specifically talking about FBAs, and using that to generalize to mean all Black American people with 4 grandparents that are, and you're a descendant of chattel slavery, is a problem. A problem very similar to equating Zionism with all Jewish people, which is also a white supremacist conservative ideology. Being an FBA is an ideology, a choice even. Being a Black American person who descends from racialized chattel slavery in the United States is just a state of being. And I think that it's important that we stop allowing people to conflate the two, because this is one of those alt-right pipeline sleeper agents that have been implanted into our community that is being employed and used currently right now when it comes to this multicultural fascist regime. And we need to start clocking people for conflating these two things, because I'll be damned if my identity gets turned into Zionism. I'll be damned.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you?
Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! We most definitely cannot forget about the people of Sudan!
Thanks for watching Afro Think Tank. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And follow me on Substack and Patreon for more content. Remember, it's Pan-Africanism or nothing.